to For What It's Worth. We're going through Bible prophecy, and today we're going to talk about the horsemen of the apocalypse, found in Revelation chapter 6. It's something that's of imagery used a lot in popular culture because it's menacing and scary. In fact, it was used in the movie Tombstone. You can see right behind me, I have a picture of the Wyatt Earp and his immortals heading to the OK Corral. And Wyatt Earp had said in that movie that hell was going to follow with him. And that came from right here in Revelation. And so it's kind of a picture of the horsemen, even though they're not on horses, but they were going for vengeance. And anyways, it's cool in pop culture, but in all seriousness, it's actually pretty scary. So let's look at this. Revelation chapter 6. Now I watched when the Lamb opened up the 7 seals. Okay, so we begin with 7 seals that open up judgments and open up the unfolding of the scroll, which God has taken in his hand in chapter 5 and is going to unleash judgments on the earth. And you have 7 seals that open up, and then at the 7th seal you have the 7 trumpets, and I think it's the last of those 7 trumpets where we have the resurrection and the rapture, the abomination of desolation. That all occurs during that time later on in chapter 13 of Revelation. But leading up to that, we have these, and if it wasn't bad enough. So the first seal opens, and a voice like thunder says, "Come," and I looked, and behold, a white horse, and its rider had a bow, and a crown was given to him, and he came out conquering and to conquer. So this first horseman is riding a white horse wearing a crown, but the crown is a Stephanos wreath. It's like the olive wreath leaves that you see like in the old Roman pictures, or what they would win at a Olympic game. It's the same symbol used in the UN symbol with all the nations, and then there's a wreath, a Stephanos around it, which is, I don't think it's by coincidence. The rider had a bow in his hand, and a crown was given to him. So he has a bow in his hand. Some have speculated, he doesn't have arrows, so that means he's conquering through peace. That could be possible. I think most people think that that's significant. I'm not sure that the absence of arrows in his hand means anything. I think that's kind of speculation, people reading into it. But he comes out conquering and to conquer, but doesn't quite get everything, it seems. Now, what does this stand for? Well, in the book of Matthew, there's a parallel that's very interesting, where Jesus is talking about what's going to happen at the end. And what I think is interesting is Jesus's layout of the end parallels these horsemen. In Matthew 24, they say, "What is the sign of your coming at the end of the age?" And Jesus answered and said, "Take heed that no one deceives you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and will deceive many." Okay, so that's the first thing. You have people that are saying, I'm the Christ, or I'm a chosen one. I'm here to save the world. And there's going to be many of these. And so we know that a guy on a white horse coming to conquer with a wreath and everything it's Christly picture. It's a Christly image, because later we see Christ returning on a white horse with crowns, but yet he's coming with a sword. So this could be conquering through deception, conquering through perhaps peace. And the reason we get that is because the second seal opens up and you get the second horseman. The second horseman is the red horseman, and its rider comes and takes peace from the earth in verse 4. So that means prior to this, there was peace on the earth. So a lot of times people look at the white horse without the arrows and say, yeah, that means he's conquering through peace. And the bow is just a threat of war, but it's actually peace. It could mean that, I'm not sure. But definitely there's peace, there's deception of false Christs, and then there's war. Because he says he takes peace from the earth so that people will slay one another, and he was given a great sword. So here we have war. And the very next thing Jesus says in Matthew 24, he says, and you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, and you shall, but be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. So Jesus already tells us, after the false Christs and after you get the messianic figures deceiving people, there's going to be wars and rumors of war. So we have great world war here, because it says he takes peace from the entire earth. So there's a great world war. And then the next seal, the next horseman is the black horse. And on its rider, he has a pair of scales in his hands. And I hear a voice saying, a quart of wheat for a denarius and 3 quarts of barley for a denarius. Do not harm the oil and wine. So this black horse comes, and he has a pair of scales, which are used for measuring in the marketplace. So this has to do with economics. The wheat and the barley cost a day's wage. So it is, a denarius is a day's wage in biblical currency. So it takes a whole day's work just to barely feed yourself. So we have massive inflation. And Jesus says in the next thing here, there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. So we have famine, that matches the black horse, and pestilence as well. That pestilence, another COVID, something like that could possibly kill a lot of people and mess up our economy, right? Throughout the whole world, bringing starvation. Then the next thing, verse 7, and then the next horseman, a pale horse, and its rider's name was Death, and hell followed with him. And he had authority over the earth to kill 1/4 of the earth with sword and famine and pestilence and wild beasts of the earth. So now it's kind of a compilation of everything coming together and destroying and killing 1/4 of the earth. That's a lot of people. That's billions will die because of this. And then finally, the 6th seal, there is a great earthquake, and the sun becomes black as sackcloth, and the moon becomes like blood, and the stars of the sky fall to the earth. This is now recalling the vision of Joel in the book of Joel. He says this will be what happens at the great day of the Lord. I've heard people like N.T. Wright say, well, this language is like saying, it's the end of the world, and the sky is falling, and it's that kind of language to say that if you were to say, oh, the sun stopped shining and the moon turned to blood, it was a way of saying it's the end of the world. It's, cataclysm. Could it be that kind of language? Possibly. Could it be literal? I think I'd like to err on the side of literal as much as I can. Is it possible that that there will be some event that blocks the earth, or blocks the sun, blocks the moon? Some people have tried to tie this to the blood moons that in the eclipses that have been just incredible amount of frequency in the last few years. The last 7 years, there have been a ton of eclipses, like more than normal. Could this be what it's talking about? I think it's interesting, but I'm not going to say that's what it is. And this gets interesting too. After the pale horse, verse 9 says, the 5th seal opened, and there was the altar with souls of those who had been slain for the word of God, for the witness they had borne. They cried out with a loud voice, O sovereign Lord, holy and true, how long before you will judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? And then in chapter 7, verse 13, Jesus identifies these people and says, these are the ones coming out of great tribulation. They have washed their robes and have been made white in the blood of the Lamb. This parallels what Jesus says here in Matthew chapter 24, verse 9. He says, and they will deliver you up to be afflicted and kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And many will be offended and will betray one another and hate one another. But verse 13, but he who endures unto the end, the same shall be saved. and the gospel of this kingdom will be preached in all the world for a witness unto the nations. Then shall the end come. The witness of Christ is going to go to all the nations because of this great persecution that's coming. And so, some have speculated that these horsemen are released prior to the beginning of the 70th week, the last 7 years. Some say that it begins the 7 years. I'm not really sure which one it is, but this is the pattern to be looking for. False Christs, or people who want to take his place as a messianic figure who's going to save the world. And quite frankly, we have a president now who's claiming that he's going to do that. He could be one of them. It's possible. And then there's going to be great war, great famine and pestilence, and a lot of people are going to die. Then great persecution of God's people. And that is what you can expect leading up to the coming of Christ. It could be that, all these promises that Trump is making about world peace and make America great again are not going to come true. There's a lot more factors in the world, and forces in the world more powerful than him, that could bring about this great world war and famine. And then who is going to get blamed for it? Who's going to get blamed? Who's going to be the fall guy? It's going to be God's people. You know why? Because it was a lot of us who said, we need to vote this guy in. He's going to fix things. I'm including myself, because I'd rather have him than the other person who would have brought about World War III, immediately. If there's going to be a lull, I'd rather take that. But either way, it doesn't matter. God's going to get it done no matter who's president. And, being that evangelicals are overwhelmingly supportive of Donald Trump, and let's say this all starts to take place soon and things don't turn out well, okay? America isn't made great again. We all don't get rich. Inflation doesn't go down. Peace doesn't happen. We end up in world war. A fourth of the earth gets killed. Who are they going to blame? They're going to say, you Christians, you people are the ones to blame. You put that man in. We said not to. And I can imagine all of the woke Christians, the ones that were anti-Trump, are going to be, "Yep, we were right about this, and we'll hate you and turn on you too." God forbid, I hope, but that doesn't happen. But God says people are going to turn on each other and hate each other, and He says in another one of the Gospels that family members will rise up against each other and betray each other. That's what's coming. And so you better have a good relationship with Jesus Christ, strong enough to withstand all of these things and endure to the end until he returns and gets us out of here before the real judgment falls on the earth, because that's what happens after the abomination of desolation. Anyway, I'm going to end it there. I think that's quite a bit. And I hope we'll strengthen ourselves until he comes.